The security personnel are recruited and trained in a specialized academy, which the security division of the the strategic plans division has 28,000 personnel at its disposal, specialized for nuclear security, which is headed by a registrar general. So it is a complete organizational part that's dealing with that. Then there is the elite rapid response force, which has air assets at its disposal to respond in agility and for ease of its mobility. The emergency response center at the SPD is manned 24/7 and is in continuous communication with the nuclear sites. The Academy for Training the Security Personnel was, which was entrusted with three main responsibilities. The physical training, handling of weapons, security and material protection, that is material protection, control and accountancy. The PRP, and there is a mock nuclear facility to train the personnel. Secondly, there are war games that are done, there are tabletop exercises that are done, and as well as there is regular field training. Furthermore, there is a regional training hub that was proposed by Pakistan in 2012 Nuclear Security Summit, which was Pakistan's proposal at the Nuclear Security Summit, and later on in Pakistan made this regional, the training academy as part of its program, and now this academy provides training for nuclear security. The first training in this regard, the Pakistan Center of Excellence for Nuclear Security, the first training happened in 2014. This is further augmented by a National Institute of Safety and Security, which actually came out of the Pakistan Nuclear Regulatory Bodies program. Earlier, this was looking at two parts. First was the School of Nuclear and Radiation Safety and the Nuclear Security Training Center. They were brought under one roof, and this School of Nuclear Safety and Security is now providing the training to the personnel. Coming to the second part, which is the multi-layered defense. There is a, yes, so the concept of defense in depth is followed by for the security of the nuclear installations. The perimeter security is an integral part, which is in the inner and the outer perimeter security. As you can see on the new file, there are technologies, there are electronic sensors, closed circuit cameras, etc., which are used. There are counterintelligence teams that serve as the eyes and ears of the security division. They are kind of the outermost perimeter. Then the overall responsibility of the external audit and the material protection, control and compliance lies with the security division. There are records and private inspections that are taken for accounting the material from kernel to break. The transportation of sensitive materials is done under escorts with special theft and tamper-proof vehicles and containers. Regarding weapons security, the weapons, as is known from the open sources, are kept in detonated form, warheads kept separate from the delivery systems, dispersal mobility is used, and then there is the Pakistani indigenous version of the barracks. Talking about the rigorous regulatory regime, PNR is basically entrusted for the safety and security of the civilian program and is the licensing authority for the import and of all the radiological sources. It retains a database for the sources, it registers the medical equipment, and then it has regional directorates that carry out inspections of those radiation sources. It ensures the safe disposal of all the radioactive sources after completion of their lifetime. It has an NSAP, the Nuclear Security Action Plan program that was developed in cooperation with the IAEA, which has a 5-pronged structure. The safe management of the sources, provision of detection, radiation detection, portal management at strategic entry and exit points, Nuclear Security Emergency Coordination Center, it has regional offices, and the Nuclear Security Training Center, which is now merged with the ISMA that already talked about. Then the Export Control Act of 2004 comprehensively covers the export control, transshipment and shipment of goods, transfer of goods and technologies and materials, and it entails, its control lists actually incorporate all the standard lists of the NSG, the Australia Group and the MTCR. The Strategic Export Control Division that is effective, which was established in 2007, is entrusted with the successful implementation and portions of PRs. And interesting part of the SEGLET program is the outreach activities that it does. And recently, the commodity identification training and capacity building that they are doing with the relevant enforcement agencies. Finally, in international cooperation, you can see on the view file that Pakistan is a party to various multilateral instruments, especially the UNSCR 1540, for which Pakistan was the first one to report and has submitted 4 reports, which are very comprehensive and talk about the threat of nuclear terrorism and how Pakistan is dealing with that at various tiers. Also, the IAEA Code of Conduct for Nuclear Safety. And so the last 2, as you can see on the view file in the international conventions, deal with the last 3 actually deal with the physical protection regime, which is very comprehensive. Pakistan has recently ratified the CPPNM amended, which is actually talking about, and we can talk about it in the Q&A session. Then there are the voluntary initiatives that Pakistan is a part to. Finally, the 2 things that I want to talk about is the nuclear security and safety culture, which I think is very important in terms of serving as a means of supporting and enhancing the security. It is the personnel that have to be trained, and Pakistan has a very elaborate structure at various levels in collaboration with the international community and domestically amongst the organizations which are working towards inculcating better nuclear safety and security culture amongst the strategic organization and civilian personnel. Then the PIAS has a curriculum which is dedicated to imparting the nuclear safety and security education to its reactor engineering students. Nuclear safety I've already talked about, the PNR is looking at it. There is also I want to just flash that Pakistan has a nuclear safety record which is accident-free. Post Fukushima, we have done a lot of, the PNR has done a lot of measures, revised the safety parameters, the emergency preparedness, response, etc. And to conclude, I would say that the measures that Pakistan has taken in ensuring the robustness of its domestic nuclear safety and security regime, they reflect Pakistan's responsible nuclear behavior as an advanced state, and as an established principle that was reiterated in the nuclear security summits, which is that nuclear security remains a sovereign national responsibility. Pakistan is cognizant of the responsibility and has undertaken all possible measures to ensure that the internationally accepted measures of nuclear safety and security are delivered.
Thank you, Sana. I do want to thank all speakers for sticking to the 10 minutes of allotted time, so which leaves us with 30 minutes for questions and answers. I just have a slight request for my colleague Gaurav Kampani, has a hearing disability. So if you have questions for him, if you could write it down, that would make more sense. And for my other colleagues, just please feel free to shoot questions of them. I'll take the chair's prerogative and I'll put forward a question to Brigadier Saleh. I'd like to elaborate on it. We know that the missile defense technology is dubious. We know it has a very high cost. It's dubious and its effectiveness can be effectively challenged. But what makes states still keep investing in that?
I think, first of all, in case of the United States, in many cases, it's the push of technology which really keeps these programs going. And since the R&D in this program started in the late 60s, and after the ABM treaty, this R&D did not stop. It was given another fillip after President Reagan's SDI program, which was announced in March 1983. So there was a huge investment in different cutting-edge technologies. Although the interest decreased after the breakup of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, but the money which had already gone into certain systems, once those technologies started maturing, there was always the interest on the part of the manufacturers and the large industrial groups in the United States like Boeing and other. They wanted to sell those technologies. So that military industrial complex has been pushing that, and despite the fact that everyone understands that so far, after such a heavy investment, the results of these tests, which are, as I said earlier also, conducted in a very controlled environment, they have not been satisfactory. The results have been 30 to 50% success rate. And despite that, the program goes on. And they also know that it is not going to be effective against a major contingency where the US gets into conflict situation with a country like Russia, for instance, which has got a large missile arsenal. So then it is justified, as it used to be in the 60s, justified to be used against limited capability of China. Now it is justified in terms of limited capabilities of countries like Iran and North Korea. Now Iran is also out of the way, and so it's North Korea or any rogue missile or any state capable of firing a couple of missiles at the United States. So I don't think so it's worth the investment, but then as I said, there's so many mechanics and politics and issues involved in this. In case of India, I think it was more like putting a foot into the door of high technology. And Indians thought at that time, by supporting the scrapping of the ABM treaty and collaborating with the US in missile defense technology, it will open up door for them to access various advanced technologies which they have been looking for a very long time. So one, it is the question of prestige and status, because they claim with a lot of pride that India is part of 3 or 4 countries in the world which have really got this kind of technology. And secondly, they want to stay at the big table. And as I said, the main purpose, however, is to open the door to cutting-edge technologies.
I do want to take 2 questions. The first question.
Okay, thank you. With reference to Mr. Gaurav's presentation, I understand he was giving US perspective. But since he has raised so many issues, it's important that if you allow a bit of more time, because I need you to take this reflection from Pakistan also, how we feel about these issues. Although this is available in open literature, but since your colleague brought in the concerns from the Washington-based think tanks, so it's important that you get a counter-narrative also, which was essentially part of my presentation, but due to the paucity of time, I could not elaborate during my presentation. I'll briefly talk about command and control. All nuclear weapons, irrespective of size and yield, are centrally controlled by the NCA. There is no pre-delegation of these nuclear weapons. These would only be authorized by the NCA. And the strategic forces, unlike some other countries, our strategic forces are separate from the conventional forces. So this perception of a rogue commander taking over or making a decision in the conventional conflict is absolutely false. This decision would only come from the NCA. On the safety and security, Ms. Sama has elaborated, but we have similar kind of measures for all weapons, nuclear weapons. So it is ridiculous to say or assume that tactical nuclear weapons would have different set of security standards than these strategic weapons. These are all strategic weapons. And we have a comprehensive security regime in place. The Strategic Command Control Support System, which was publicized in 2013, that monitors all nuclear weapons in Pakistan during peacetime and crisis. So no nuclear weapon is moved or shifted without the authorization of the competent authority. I can go on, but there is enough in Brigade named Salik's book, and there are other books also literature about Pakistan's command and control. But what I would like to highlight over here is, it's ironic that these assertions are coming from the United States, which is still using floppy disks from the 1970s. And in nuclear command and control, there are loopholes. There is enough literature now available questioning how United States, but I'll not like to compare myself with the United States. But definitely there is a comparison between India and Pakistan. Are these concerns being raised about India in United States think tank? That's one question. Because what we hear, and if you recall, there was a presentation made by Brigadier Arun Saigal in your institute in Washington, and he heads a think tank, and he brought an official perspective about how India manages its nuclear command and control. But I'll go a bit further before I cover the. I'll not go into very technical detail that your colleague raised. But once you talk about terrorism, here is a country whose Prime Minister openly says that he sponsored or supported terrorism against Pakistan in 1971. Here is a country where Prime Minister was declined visa in the United States, and nobody in Washington think tanks raises that question that he is heading National Command Authority of that country. And there are other episodes also about the radicalization in India. I'm not making these points against you, but since you represent a respectable think tank, I expect that you will take these reflections back, at least to your think tank, that how we feel insecure that the nuclear command authority of our neighboring country is in the hands of people who openly say that they have sponsored terrorism against Pakistan. And there are statements by National Security Advisor, who is the principal decision maker. He has been openly saying that they are sponsoring terrorism. So these are issues of serious concern. But once you raise about this Pakistan, you must also raise similar questions made by responsible decision makers from our neighboring countries. Now coming to the specific issues. India also introduced its tactical nuclear weapon. Did somebody raise that question? How they are going to manage Prahar in India, while the entire debate is focused on Nasr, which we continue to say that it's part of our strategic assets, and the same command and controls are applicable to that also. There are conceptual issues which Arun Saigal also raised in that presentation. What is pursuit and first strike? Indian strategic enclave is uncertain about their doctrinal positions, and that's they openly admit. I've had conversations with senior scholars from India, based in the United States. They openly admit this kind of discord within the strategic enclave. The political side, they continue to project how they view nuclear weapons, but the DRDO is building missile systems with a reduced reaction time to within minutes, and that's how you also refer to DRDO chief's statement also. He made openly that he has been mandated to reduce the reaction time of its missiles. That's head trigger launch status. So that's the kind of signals that we continue to get from our neighborhood, and you can imagine how we in Pakistan, who are responsible for taking corrective measures, how would we interpret these signals, and what kind of compulsions are there for the Pakistani decision makers also. Then there is the massive retaliation. In the same presentation, Arun Saigal said massive retaliation, according to the Indian interpretation, would be more than what Pakistan does. Now that's the kind of understanding on the other side, and we understand the dilemma. They just instituted strategic planning staff, a small set-up group, emulating the strategic plans division, and Bharat Karnad openly said that we need to have a professional organization like strategic plans division, and that's how the strategic planning staff came in. A nuclear power who is professing to become a global power. That's the kind of thinking coming out from that country. So I think I've said enough, but you must take these signals back, this kind of confusion that the interpretation coming from the Indian side, the Indian strategic enclave, and the compulsions on Pakistani decision makers because of this internal chaos within India's strategic enclave. Thank you for the time also.
Thank you.
Your visibility and the acoustics of the room are such that most of your comments just echoed across, and I couldn't catch them. So the first question, are there concerns raised about India? Yes, there are questions raised about India. Unlike Pakistan, which has cooperated, or the United States, which has cooperated with Pakistan post-2001, at least in developing the organizational capacities to deal with nuclear material, export controls, and the safety of its assets, the Indians have been far more reluctant and recalcitrant. So there are questions, but these are raised more privately. The questions in the case of Pakistan are more salient because of the context of the conflict in Afghanistan, America's involvement, and because of Pakistan's asymmetric war strategy. So the questions are raised about Pakistan because, at least according to most understandings outside Pakistan, and perhaps you would not share my point of view of this, that Pakistan's arsenal is growing much faster than India's. And the view is that Pakistan has the fastest growing arsenal in the world. And because of this intersection of domestic instability could have a negative impact in the future. Now, the question that you're asking is this a relative, is there a question of, should we calibrate, why are we calibrating India and Pakistan together, or is this a question